Hey there, it's Mandy from Mandy Marie Art. I'm back with another Copic swatch video. This video is part one of a two-part series where I will swatch all of the blue Copic inks that I have in my personal collection. I have 32 of the 35 blue Copic inks currently available, and this first video will cover 18 of those inks. As a reminder, if you want to see swatches of all of the Copic colors in my personal collection in real time with me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below and you'll be notified the second I upload a new video. I really love blue hues, so I'm really excited to show you what I have in my collection. Let's dig in. First up, I have B000, which is Pale Porcelain Blue. I'm gonna put a drop up in that corner. A little bit of 91% ISO. I'm just gonna kind of start moving that ink around. This particular color does initially stain the paper, and so you'll see that it has that soft blue sitting on the Yupo paper. Overall, it's a very stable color. No halos really show through. But what you can't probably see as well on the page is that it is a bit gummy. So there's a bit of tackiness to the color, especially as it dries, but it's a very light color. Next up is B00, which is Frest Blue. So again, just a drop of ink, a little tiny bit of 91% ISO, moving it around. And just like the last color, stains the paper initially where you put the color down. Very light color, but a very stable color overall. No halos showing through. Again, a little gummy like the first one. And I'll show you once I finish up with the next color, kind of what that looks like. I'll zoom in a little bit. The next color is B01, which is Mint Blue. And Mint Blue, again, light as the other two, stains the paper initially where you put the color down, but a very stable color overall. No halos coming through. And this one is much smoother, not as gummy as the first two. You can kind of see, you don't see as much of that initial staining as you do with the first two. You can see where I put the first drops down. So this one stains the paper overall, but not in like a little drop area like the first two. So again, like I mentioned, first two slightly more gummy, and you can kind of see that sheen when I kind of tilt it. That third one, that Mint Blue, not as much. It is drying right now, but the first two definitely have a little bit more of a gummy texture. The next color is B02, which is Robin's Egg Blue. This one does stain that paper where that initial drop was placed, but as the color moves around on the paper, you can't really see that initial drop as much. Again, very stable color, not a lot of bleeding, so you won't see any like the pinks that can sometimes show up in the blues. And this color is definitely, not very gummy. Maybe a little gumminess around the edges where the ink settles. This next color is B04, which is Tahitian Blue. Again, a little bit of staining on that initial pour, but stable color. Halos are not present. Very smooth color. Overall, not a lot of tackiness or gumminess. So the viscosity is really low. Next color is B05, which is Process Blue. Process Blue doesn't really stain the paper in that general area where I drop the ink, but it does stain as you move it around the paper, of course. Very stable color, no halos popping through. Very smooth, not a lot of gumminess or texture. The next color is B06, which is Peacock Blue. No initial staining spot. Overall, the color is very stable. No halos present. Texture is really non-existent. It's a very smooth color. Next up is B12, which is Ice Blue. Initial staining spot, because this is a lighter color, but overall you can kind of hide it, so still okay there. There is the presence of very, very minimal halos or like undertones that will bleed through on this color. And so there's a little bit of a lavender pink on the outer edges. Next color is B14, which is light blue. With light blue, you don't see that initial staining spot, and so that's nice. You don't have to worry about covering it up. It's a pretty stable color for the most part, but there is just a tiny bit of a pink lavender color around the edges. So similar to the last color, again, just a little bit of those halos coming through. Overall texture is pretty minimal. But again, just a little bit of those halos showing through. Next color is B16, which is Cyanine. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyway, here's that. So B16. Doesn't really have that initial staining spot, so you can kind of move the color around pretty easily. Overall, not a ton of color bleeding through on this one. I'm not really seeing too much for halos, just a tiny little bit there again with those pinks, same as the last two. So just a little bit of that pinky purple showing through, but again, not as much. Next color is B21, which is baby blue. And baby blue is like a little bit more of that purple in it, so it's kind of got a lavender feel to it, very soft. Lots of pinky purples show up with this color. That initial staining isn't too bad on the paper. You can cover it up pretty well, but again, just a tiny bit of pink maybe, but for the most part, it's a pretty stable color, but there's a lot of, like, there's a purple feel to it. Next up is B23, which is Phthalo Blue. There's a tiny little initial stain spot, but you can't really see it once you start to cover it up. But again, like the last color, bit of purple hue to it, and then this one has more halos, lots of pink around the edges, and kind of like that tinge of purple. Next up is B24, which is Sky. And Sky stains the paper just a little bit more, but you can, it stains as you move the ink around pretty well on the paper there. Lots of halos with this color, so lots of pink undertones bleed through around the edges, a little bit of a tinge of purple showing there. Not much in terms of texture, so overall, it's okay where that's concerned, not a lot of gumminess. Next color is B26, which is Cobalt Blue. Small initial staining spot from where the ink went down on the paper. Lots of pink halos will show up with this color around the edges. You'll start to see that there. So again, pink halos around it. Little tinge of purple coming through, of course, as those colors mix together. Not a lot of tackiness or gumminess to the color. Next is B28, which is Royal Blue. Royal Blue is a pretty intense color, very vibrant, kind of reminds me of a fluorescent, even though it's not a part of the fluorescent series, but it's very intense. You can see it's a pretty stable color. Halos don't really show through there or undertones, but it is slightly gummy, so there is a bit of texture to it, but not a ton, but it's there. All right, next color is B32, which is Pale Blue. Not a lot of staining on the paper where that color goes down initially. It's a very light color, but it's very soft. It doesn't have a lot of halo, so it's pretty stable. In terms of gumminess or texture, it's not very thick or gummy. Overall, pretty solid, stable color. Next up is B34, which is Maganese Blue. This one has kind of a grayish feel to it. It's really kind of dirty, but nice. It's soft, really light. Doesn't really have that initial staining on the paper. Stable color, so you can see halos are non-existent for the most part. If anything, maybe a little bit of gray showing through there as a halo, but overall pretty stable color. Not a lot of texture or gumminess to it, but the lines can be kind of intense with it, which is kind of nice if you like that. Next color is B45, which is Smoky Blue. Again, sticking into more of that gray color scheme again. A little bit of initial staining on the paper when you first put this color down, but you can't really see it too much. In terms of halos, there's a tiny bit of that purpley pink again showing up around the edges. You're starting to see that here and here. And this color has a bit of gumminess or texture to it. Not a lot, but a little bit. And of course, is a step up from the B34. But again, pink halo showing through, pinkish purple overall.
All right, one last look at 18 of the 32 blue Copic inks I have in my personal collection. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. As another reminder, I'm going to be releasing a series of videos where I swatch all of the Copic inks I have in my personal collection. So if you're wanting to see all of the Copic ink colors swatched in real time with detailed info about each color, go ahead and hit that subscribe button below and you'll be notified the second I upload a new video. Have a great day.